Today's podcast is brought to you by Blue Canary. The bird has landed on beautiful Bainbridge Island, conveniently located at 499 Madison Avenue. ASE Master Technician Clint Ramsey brings over 15 years of experience, award-winning diagnostic skill, and a desire to reinvent the automotive repair experience. Schedule an appointment online at bluecanary.biz or call them today at 206-451-4220. I got something for your mind, body, and soul. I got something for your mind, body, and soul. What's good, Podcastville? You found the Bystander Podcast. Today, my guest is Pamela. Thank you for returning. What's good with you in your life?
Well, it's so nice to be back here and talking to you at the tippy top of fall here on the island. And I am well. I am busy with work and life and teaching. And
well, you're my favorite nutritionist. I just got a doctor prescription that says that I can use my FSA card to now come see you on the cheap.
Great, yes.
So I'm planning to do that.
Oh, wonderful.
Can you tell everybody that doesn't know about your business and your background and your origin story a little bit?
Sure.
You're a nutritionist.
Yep. I'm
on the island?
Registered dietitian nutritionist, and my bachelor's and master's in nutrition, but I would say that I take somewhat of a non-traditional approach and that I really focus on the whole person. A lot of people hear the word dietitian and they equate that to food police, and they think that I will be giving them a meal plan or telling them what to eat and what not to eat, and that's generally not how I work at all. I like to hear what someone's struggling with and also what's going well. Sometimes that's a part of the equation that we kind of bypass when we're trying to make health changes. And so I have a private practice. My business is called North Star Nutrition, and it's a virtual practice, and I do accept flex spending. And so I work with people on all sorts of different issues that they want to work on. That could be some people are training for athletic competition, some people are working to shift their relationship with food, other people are working on a weight journey, and I'm here for it. So,
very cool. When we talk about, I have so many more questions for you. It's unbelievable. I've been waiting for 6 weeks to see you again. When we talk about diet, is diet a bad word?
I mean, I don't think anything is inherently bad. I think the word diet has shifted from traditionally of, what we do eat to what we don't eat. So if you think about the diet of our ancestors, it's, the things that they were eating. And then if you think about diet today, that's usually what we're not eating, what we're eliminating from.
But when we talk about ancestors, didn't they die a lot younger?
Yes.
And why would it be advantageous for us to take an ancestry, if that's the correct word, diet approach?
I mean, that is one philosophy of many that's out there. Personally, I tend not to be a subscriber to any one paradigm over another. I'm pretty agnostic. I think that there's different things that work for different people.
I love that approach. I feel the same way. Everything's good in moderation. There's a lot of good things versus bad things. I mean, my son was telling me about this chemistry project, and there was all these words that I can't pronounce or put on a Scrabble board. And that was always been a red flag for me, that if I can't pronounce the ingredient or spell it, I shouldn't be ingesting it. And then he said, you know what that means? It means water. So he had a chemistry compound, element, whatever, that basically meant water. So there's all this information that we hype up on labels and such, Nutrition Facts, FDA, WHO, all these different outlets are trying, the food pyramid, they're all trying to tell you how to eat. And I think they all have it wrong. It needs to be a suggestion. And certain attributes of food contribute to your health individually. So something that you're lacking, a certain food would benefit you, but not necessarily me. And then when we talk about supplements and food, are we talking about I need to eat a ton of this stuff? You know, there's just so much disconnect when I read a nutrition label or a food fact, or I see somebody on social media tell me what I should eat or shouldn't eat. Organ meats, fruits, vegetables, all carnivore diet, be a pescatarian, eat the Greek diet. Where do you follow? How do you kind of funnel this information into a practice that's practical for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think
long-winded one, sorry.
No, I mean, I think it is challenging to make your way through the world when it comes to nutrition right now, because there are so many different theories and ideas and paradigms, and nutrition is the only science where opposing theories can be proven correct. So when you're trying to look at research and understand what makes sense, there is no one answer. And while on one hand that could be frustrating, it also could be considered liberating, because as what you just said is so true. What is ideal or best or what you need could be very different from what someone else needs. And so my work is helping people to begin to listen and learn from and trust their body as a very valuable, valid source of information. Yeah,
listen to your body.
Yeah.
So when you take on a client, is there a blood panel right off the get?
No, not necessarily. If someone comes to me and they know that they have high cholesterol or they're diabetic or pre-diabetic, we can work with that. But I don't start with there. I usually like to start with people's relationship with food and get an understanding of how they're thinking about food, how they make their food choices, and just get a sense of where they're starting from, and of course also what their goals are. Where do they want to go? Because it's not my place or position to tell someone what they need. I can offer input and suggestions and advice, but I work in a collaborative way with my clients where I have a background in nutrition, but you have the background in you. You're the expert in yourself and your life and your body.
Listen to your body.
Yeah, and together that can be a powerful combination.
So my body never said I had high cholesterol. I'm just going to throw that out here. So if somebody said, I have high cholesterol, what would be your advice to them off the get?
So there's lots of different reasons why someone could have high cholesterol. Food, yes, that is genetics. One of them. It is a myth that cholesterol in food raises cholesterol in our body. So for example, eggs, they do have some cholesterol in them, but they will not raise your blood levels of...
Well, if you're Rocky and you're sucking down 8 raw eggs 3 times a day, you might have a cholesterol problem.
I mean, possibly, but it really just depends on the big picture. It's more saturated fats from a dietary perspective that can elevate cholesterol. But stress is another big thing that can raise cholesterol, that can throw, our blood sugar levels out of whack. And so a lot of the things I often talk with clients have to do with stress. And I weave in, mind-body practices to help people to reduce stress in general and reduce stress if there is stress related to food and food choices as well, because that is just counterproductive really to any goal that someone is working on.
How does stress change your blood level? What physically is going on that makes stress change?
So physiologically, stress will create a cascade of reactions in the body. It can elevate cortisol, which is a stress hormone. It can elevate insulin. And over time, these, stress in and of itself is a natural reaction to certain situations. The problem is when we have chronic stress and we don't actually return to baseline. And for so many people coming out of this pandemic or just life in general, even before the pandemic, we're not a culture that is great at slowing down and prioritizing relaxation. We live in the
whole work-life balance type thing.
Yeah.
And I guess, how does stress challenge my blood or my innards? You're talking to a stupid kid right here. But no. I always want to do right by my body because I know health is my wealth, and my organs are something that I don't see.
Yes.
What's going on in my blood? I like to blood map every 90 days. I'm always displeased with the results. I feel like food is a gateway to change those results, because genetically I am who I am. My body type is my body type. My activity level, of course, could get raised, and maybe that helps it as well. But I really think that health comes food-based.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
When I think about stress, stress has a temporary hold on me at certain points in my life. But how does that really affect my cholesterol?
So, system-wide stress impacts the entire body. We think of stress as just a psychological condition or situation. But even, for example, going too long without food is a form of stress on the body. And that can release these stress hormones. It can, when we are stressed, the blood gets diverted away from our organs and gets shunted to our limbs so that we can, if we're in a situation that we need to run, we are able to do that. And stress impacts our choices, so it can lead us to eat foods chronically that may not be the best choices for us. And there's so many ways.
How's that differentiate? Like, I passively intermittently fast for 14 hours, and that stresses my body, right? So occasionally I will do a hot sauna for 20 plus minutes, and that is like a heat protein stress.
Yes.
And people that are braver than me do the cold plunge, and that's a stressor. So certain stresses seem to be identified as healthy endeavors.
Absolutely, yes.
So how do we differentiate our stress?
So the short-term stress situations are good. They, we need to have that kind of eustress or positive stress in our system. And the goal is always to return back to baseline. The problem is when we have these stressful situations, and then it just builds and builds and builds. And a lot of times we don't even fully know the stress that we are under because it's become so habituated and it's just become the new normal. And so those examples that you were saying, yes, for sure, they might create some temporary stress on the body, but that's okay as long as we're returning back to our baseline.
How do we define a baseline?
How do we define a baseline? I guess it would be the body in a non-stressed or a less stressed situation. When we are, for example, able to digest our food because we're not shunting our blood away, when our heartbeat is not rapidly going, when all of our systems have sort of returned to their homeostasis state.
How do you feel about eating for your glycemic index or your blood type or those type of diets? How do you define that? How do you figure that out?
There are some people who swear by it. I haven't read anything that has me convinced that that is the
way to go.
The way to go. I do think what's great, though, is when people hear something and they're willing to experiment with it and to see how does it work for them. There are, like I said, there is no one right way. I do think that it's good to see research. I also think it's good to do an experiment, N of one, where you are the one and you see how you feel on it. That is such an important part of the equation.
Have you seen this new Netflix documentary, Live to 100, The Blue States?
Oh, the Blue Zone diet?
Blue Zones, yeah.
I haven't. I know a little bit about the Blue Zones, but I have not seen that.
How do you feel about that? A bunch of 100-plus-year-old people, largest amounts in 6 or 7 spots in the whole world. And the way they carry themselves and the food that they eat and stuff. And it's not all the same by any means. I've seen it, so I don't want to spoiler alert here, but the one thing that I took away from it was the majority of these people don't have furniture. They sit on the ground and they have a small table to eat on, but they get up and down all the time. It's flexibility, it's movement, it's gardening, it's curating your own food in a communal source. It's activity. What do you know about blue zones and how they affect your practice? And I know not everybody's goal is to live to be 100, but when I saw this documentary, I was surprised that there was 100-year-old people doing splits, sitting in crisscross applesauce, and this one guy just touched his head to the ground while he was in crisscross applesauce, and he was over 100 years old, and I can't do that at 50-something. It's inspiring. It's incredible, but it's not a lifestyle that I think America lives in any way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the word lifestyle is important. I think food is one part of that, but as you said, there is community, there's connection, there's a non-sedentary lifestyle.
Right.
There's so many other things that are a part of that lifestyle and those experiences that that they're having. And I would be curious, I don't know if they've studied this, but, to look at their levels of perceived stress. Because the other thing about stress is it does, there has been some research that shows it matters what your perception of your stress is. Like the more you perceive yourself to have a higher level of stress, then that can actually have a negative impact on you. And, again, the mind-body connection, we tend to think of the mind and body as separate, but if you think of them as a continuum and they're interconnected, what the mind thinks impacts the body's physiology, and how we are in our physical body can impact our thoughts and our mind, and so they're very intertwined and interconnected.
I love to cook. I love food. My disposable income almost always goes to food experiences. I've always been that way. The thing that I learned was, and I love to cook for people, but I get stressed out. Like everything has to hit at the right time, the right temperature, and you need to eat it while it's hot. Drives my son nuts because he can eat it hot or cold, any temperature, it still tastes the same to him. But as I cook, I stress out about certain things and timing and stuff. And what I learned about the blue zones was all the elders cook together. Mm. There's somebody slicing, there's another person dicing, there's another flipping a pan, another doing and they're all talking, having a great time, laughing and joking, but they all have a part in the meal. And it relieves so much pressure just watching that from what my attitude was in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, hey, maybe we invite people in when we're having a guest over to participate in that cooking or the prep, or let's have a conversation about the island and table, and we're going to do a few things and ask their opinion. You think we need more garlic here, a shallot here, or whatever?
Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful experience.
Yeah. And what does your diet look like?
It's pretty varied. I don't have a name for my diet. It consists of all sorts of things. What did I have today? I've had some steel-cut oats with berries, and we just finished up the harvest of peaches from the orchard, so there's lots of peach things happening. So I just got an air fryer, and that's been fun. So I'm experimenting with cooking, salmon and chicken and different foods in there. I'll bake desserts, I eat lots of fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and really what sounds good to me. I don't put a lot of restrictions on what I eat.
So I don't even know where to go from that. I feel like I'm restricting myself from things all the time, whether it be deep fried or sugar or I'm looking for the most nutrient-dense, low-calorie thing to help me not be a fat slob all the time. So sometimes my meals are not, like steel-cut oats. I will have those with berries. I'm not satisfied with that. I really am not. But I'll have that 2 or 3 times a week. And it's a struggle and a stressor as well. So I like that you don't put a label on how you eat. I think labels are stupid. Diet names are stupid as well, minus the Mediterranean diet. I think that's a good name because that's where it's at. It's good food, all that stuff. I don't know where I'm going with this, but how about this? Why doesn't the Greek Mediterranean diet, why don't we see more restaurants and stuff like that? Why is it so hard to sell people on that type of eating? It seems like it continually is named the best diet nationally over and over and over. Mm-hmm. But I don't see Mindy's Mediterranean trough out there as a restaurant. Explain that to me.
That's a good question. And I don't know.
Do we just want to eat bread and cheese all the time? Ground beef? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you're not hard, fast on how you give opinions to your clients.
Correct.
You're basically saying, what's your body type? What's your feeling? What's your motivation for food? How do you size somebody up? Okay, let's say I walk into your office and I say, hey, my eating habits are horrible. I don't feel good in my body. I want to do better. How do you approach me?
I would say, what are you doing that is working for you?
What? Salad. Salmon. That's working for me. Avocado is working for me. Lots of water is working for me.
So you like those? You enjoy those things?
Yes. I love a cup of hot water in the morning. Mm-hmm. I try to not eat for an hour after I wake up. That seems to be pretty easy for me. Eating late night because I don't sleep well is a problem with me. I'm like, let's go to the cottage cheese. Yeah. Let's nibble. Okay, my fasting would work a lot better if, I have the alert on my phone. 8 o'clock, stop eating. Hard fast. Start now. Big letters, all capital,
the whole stars and all that around it. And I look at that and go, yeah, time to eat something else. I don't have a habit that stops me from eating when I'm done with my day. It's just like I was talking about no furniture. My day is done, late at night. I sit in a lazy boy with a remote and some food. And that does not work for me. That's why I start my day with steel oats. I have a salad at lunch with avocado or salmon on it, or some great Mano is my favorite meal that I get at Subi. It's octopus and seaweed, and it's a nice salad. And then dinner comes, usually I'm on the road, so, it's not the best. But I always start out with good intention. It's the ending that kills me. Help me, Pamela.
For folks who are struggling with nighttime eating, there's a couple of different things that could be going on. And one of the things I'm always curious about is, what does the rest of your day look like? How much are you eating? Are you eating enough? Are you getting enough protein? Are you enjoying the foods that you're eating? Because there's the restriction of, our choices, but then there's also the mental restriction that can come along with food. And our bodies and our minds are designed for balance. So when we're restricting, we're bound to overdo it. And so finding the way to eat in a way that you feel really good about, that it's not a diet mentality, but that you're enjoying yourself and eating enough throughout the day, is something that's really important to look at, instead of just judging the nighttime habit. The other thing that, what's the stress levels, what's going on, how are you benefiting, what is that giving to you? Because if we are to take out any kind of judgment and just get curious, there's a reason that that's happening, and it's not a bad thing, but can we just look at it with some compassion and non-judgment and do some experimentation to see what else might be possible.
How do you get out of your own head? Because I'll sit there with a small tub of cottage cheese, and I should have half, or I shouldn't eat this at all. And then I self-sabotage. What's going on with me there?
So when I hear that, and tell me if you're wrong, I hear you're engaging it as a mental exercise of, what should I do based on...
Yeah, because nutritionally, I don't need to eat past 8 o'clock. I've got healthy fats, vegetables, fiber, throughout my day. So I should be satisfied, and yet I'm depressed for some reason, and I turn to food.
It's very common. I mean, food does give us dopamine hits. It does, change our outlook and our mindset. Granted, it's temporary. I actually don't think that emotional eating is inherently bad. I think it has a bad reputation. I think when we're doing it more often than we want to, it's something to explore. But I do think that emotional eating is a part of the human experience. And it's okay to enjoy food, even at times if you physiologically don't need it. I do think it's also important to get used to tuning into your body and listening to those cues, because sometimes, we try to override what our body is telling us with our mind, saying, oh, I shouldn't be hungry now, or I ate enough. But there's so many factors that go into things. How much did you sleep? How much movement were you doing? How much water are you drinking? There's a lot of factors that can go into it. So even if logically you don't think that you should need something, you still might actually need it.
How's food affect sleep?
How does food affect sleep? Well, for some people, if they eat too late at night, they can, have discomfort with their digestion if their food is not fully or mostly digested. But the other thing is that sleep can impact our food, because we have two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, that impact our hunger and our satiation. And if we don't get enough sleep, or, excuse me,
it's all right.
that can throw off those hormones. So having good and sufficient rest is really important. It can also throw off, our food choices and our ability to make decisions that are in alignment with our goals.
I think it also makes us sluggish in the morning if we eat late at night.
For some people.
Yeah, I don't know if that's... Don't fact check me. I don't know anything. I'm trying to figure out things.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You're paying attention, you're curious, you're exploring. And I think that is sometimes where it can be helpful to have, another set of eyes or, thoughts on the situation, because there may be things that you just aren't quite looking at naturally, because if you don't have a degree or haven't studied these things, it really is hard to fully understand, what's going on.
Right. Portion size in America was out of control too. Like, what is the standard portion size? I heard one time a deck of cards, or the palm of your hand,
yes,
is the amount of protein you should eat at a meal.
That's one serving. So depending upon your size and activity level, that may be enough, or that may not be. So standard serving sizes depend upon the kind of food. So for fruits and vegetables, it's usually like a medium-sized apple or banana as a serving, half cup of vegetables. You're right, the palm of your hand for meat is a serving. A slice of bread is a serving.
What do you suggest the amount of grams of protein somebody should have that's relatively active?
It depends on their age.
Okay, let's just take my son. He's 16. Probably runs 6 or 7 miles a day. Growing boy. How much protein does a high schooler need?
Offhand, I would hesitate to give a number. I can say...
Then give a range.
Growing teens, they have a high energy, expenditure, and therefore high energy need, high protein needs. I don't, without his height and weight and more exact details of how much he's active.
130, 5'9". 16.
You really want a number.
No, I just generalization, because he seems like he wants to have protein in every meal. He stresses it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Are we over protein crazy in America?
Again, this is an area where there's different thoughts and opinions on it. Again, everyone is so different. I do prioritize protein in my diet. One of the reasons is I have ADHD, and that actually is really important for me to produce neurotransmitters, so I make sure I get it. A very rough estimate, and this is not for a teenager, but for an adult, that I've heard is about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But it's not an exact science at all, and I really hesitate to give out numbers on a show like this, because it's just...
Hey, nobody's listening. No, I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. It's a good question. Yeah.
All right, Vinny, figure it out yourself. Get on the internet. Hey, you do a lot of yoga as well, correct?
I do yoga.
And you have a yoga class coming up here?
Yes.
Got a name of a certain yoga studio that we're still trying to figure out how to say?
Dayalu, yes.
Dayalu?
Yes.
Whatever we want to call it, over there, Wyatt Avenue, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great little studio.
Yes.
And you're doing yoga for...
The class is called Yoga for Peaceful Eating.
Thank you. I forgot also. Peaceful eating. What is peaceful eating?
Well, I have a yoga sequence that I developed that helps to create easeful digestion. And so it really helps to calm the nervous system and help aid digestion, absorption, assimilation in the body. So it's a very gentle sequence. And so, I just call it peaceful eating also because we talk about how we relate to food and trying to step away from the rules and everyone's thoughts and opinions about what we should do, and really try to tune into what is going to be best for us.
So what's that class look like? Are you going to serve some chili and then do some yoga poses? What's going on?
So we do some discussion. There's different topics I'll bring each week. We talk about everything from, like I said, the different places we get all of these opinions about what we should do. I also talk a fair amount about how we talk to ourselves, the inner critic versus, kinder voices. This comes up a lot when it comes to food for many people, and starting to pay attention to that dialogue, noticing it, and also knowing how to shift it, so that we are kinder to ourselves. And it's really hard to get to know yourself and to make decisions that are going to be best for you when there's a voice in your head that's like constantly berating you and telling you shouldn't have ate that, and this is like the wrong thing for you. And most of us have a much stronger connection to our critic than some of the kinder, wiser voices. So
like I'll go to a restaurant and I'll look at the menu and I'm like, oh, that sounds good, but this is probably a better choice. But I'm not happy with a better choice, right? So I have this critic that's going back and forth, and I usually am the last person to order because I'm having that verbal debate in my mind. Oh, I like pizza. Yeah, the pear salad looks nice. Pizza would really hit the spot right now. I really want the pizza. And then the waiter or waitress will come and I'll go, pear salad, please. And I'll get disappointed as immediately as I say that, right? So how do we stifle that inner voice or create a situation where we're controlling the inner voice in a positive way? Like, hey, maybe I offer to split the pizza with Pamela and get a side salad instead of a huge salad. How do I get that type of thought process and really the ability to do so when I'm out with friends and loved ones and stuff, going out to meals?
Do you tend to notice the voice as it's happening, or is it just in reflection or in talking about it that you...
It's shouting at me.
Okay, so you're aware.
You dumb, fat, blah, blah, blah. You better get the salad. You better get the Brussels sprouts. Don't get them fried. Get them steamed. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And it's almost overbearing, but it's also been accepted in my mind all the time, where like I'm going to have this debate with myself and hopefully I come out ahead. Like pizza's just been on my mind because I think I've gone 90 days without a slice of pizza. And I love pizza, but I know it's not the thing for me, right? As you get older, no matter, your exercise slows down, your flexibility slows down, your consumption is kind of the same. Maybe it deteriorates towards sweets and stuff as we age. You're not eating as much, you're not working out as much, you're not as active as much. So then you start establishing that the fat and stuff in your mind. Not in your mind, in your body. And then in your mind, you're like, I'm not happy with my body. So this is something I need to do to be more happy with my body, is order this thing as opposed to that thing.
And does it work?
No. I'm constantly failing. Why do you think I have you in here?
No, I mean, does it work? Like, do you feel better about your body when you order the pear salad?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Does it work on a consistent basis? No, not necessarily. Maybe I'll go hot wings or pizza a certain time or whatever. But then it doesn't stack up like, okay, good food choice. What's my next exercise choice? What's my next restriction? What's my water intake? It's just a list that keeps growing and growing and growing. And that's a lot of why I make the bad choice in the first place. because I don't possibly think I can get through that whole list of apple cider vinegar, tart cherry juice, my supplements, my protein intake, my fiber intake, my taste for good food. Like, I love a great apple. I love avocado. I love salmon. But I also can't eat that every meal, sweet potatoes. And there's also the family dynamic. Like, we don't all like the same things. So when I cook, I usually tend to cook for the people I'm cooking for and not necessarily myself. So then there comes the stress again in cooking.
Yeah.
And then that adds to, okay, I've cooked this now. Better damn well eat it. Now I'm not satisfied with what I've ate as well, because it wasn't really my choice in this path of rediscovering my health through food.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. And the part you were saying a little bit earlier about sometimes you make the choice you don't want to because the alternative is you have to do 100 good things. Yeah. And that feels daunting and overwhelming versus, you just eat you said pizza, and then you feel it gives you some relief from that burden of like, well, I can't do those 100 things, so why not just enjoy this pizza? Mm-hmm. So a lot of this is a mental
Olympics
mindset.
Yeah.
Yes, Olympics. That's a good way to put it. And I think that a lot of times it's starting small and just finding what is the one thing that you can do consistently. Is it eat breakfast? Is it drink enough water? Is it make sure you don't skip lunch when you're busy? And see yourself being consistent at that. Don't try to do the 100 things, because that's pretty much a recipe to not succeed and then feel bad and then kind of put yourself on a negative cycle.
I totally get that, and that's what I subscribe to currently. Mm-hmm. But I don't see a change in my blood work, I guess. I'm not making great strides or accomplishments in overall health. Like I said, I love a hot water in the morning. Mm-hmm. Don't love to, but I try to intermittent fast 2 or 3 days a week. I'll substitute a pizza for a salad, one meal or whatever. So I make those small sacrifices, but that never really gets me over the hump. I need a way to commit myself to a lifestyle such as your own, where you're doing yoga, flexible, you're eating the right things, you mentally are checked in, those type of things. I think it's easy to say I'm not going to have takeout, or I'm not going to have deep fried food. That's real easy. But to be consistent for 3 meals, 7 days a week, over time, over more time, and then get that sense of energy and acceptance of my body and how I feel, and a weight that, is under the BMI appropriate, even though the BMI is bullshit. I want to be careful that I'm carrying a body weight that's not hard on my hips, my knees, my ankles, my back, all that stuff. I know longevity-wise, I'm not trying to live to be a million years old, but as I age, I want to be capable and able.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm here to talk about you, and I'm going off.
No, there was something I wanted to say, and it just escaped me. Labs sometimes can be very stubborn, and there's different reasons. Labs. Yeah, you were talking about
blood
not
work,
seeing things move. I think it can be tricky when we're exclusively basing our success on numbers, whether that's the number on the scale or cholesterol levels. I really like to focus on habits, because habits over time are going to keep us, healthy.
Afloat.
Yeah. And giving yourself credit and where credit is due. And so maybe you haven't had, the cholesterol change or lower, but like, are you taking a better care of yourself? Because there's so many different ways to measure health and wellness. And I think psychologically it can be really tricky when we only feel successful if it's based on a number. And hitting that number, my experience is that when people hit that number and it's still transitory, like it's fleeting. It's not a feeling that stays with you forever. You can have good days and bad days at any weight, any cholesterol level. But if you are building your belief in yourself that you can care for yourself in a way that you feel good about, and you're not having unrealistic expectations, because I do think that and social media, contributes to this, where we have some sort of unrealistic expectation of what we should be doing. And there's a lot of disordered eating out there that is considered normal, and that's really tricky to navigate.
Yes, it is. That's why I'm having this conversation with you again.
Yeah.
Let's get into you, because I know you have to get out of here and stuff. We kind of talked a little bit about dealing with stubbornness.
Yes.
What is your measure of success when it comes to nutrition?
Am I eating in a way that I feel good about, physically, mentally, emotionally? So
you want to be a happy eater? Yeah.
Am I eating meals that are colorful, that are nice to look at?
A rainbow, yeah.
Am I...
That's a huge thing for me. Does it look good on a plate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge.
Totally. Am I giving myself time to sit down and eat it versus, standing up and eating it on the go? Am I getting, the protein that I know that I need that makes a difference? Am I getting enough water? If I am skimpy on my water, it's amazing. I sometimes get to the end of the day and I just literally feel so completely depleted. And it can just be hydration. I mean, a very small drop in hydration level of like 3% can have cognitive impacts and, really impact how you feel. So it's just, to me, it's the small things. And if I can get out on a walk earlier in the day, then I know the smaller things that set me up for a good day. So I really just focus on those smaller things. And I let myself be human. There's days and times where I don't do it, and I work really hard to not judge myself, because I do have that history of a very strong inner critic, and I'm committed to really letting my nervous system have a much more of a say in my decisions, instead of just my brain and my ego mind that's like, go and do and accomplish. And that completely changes the quality of my life on a daily basis.
Sleep too.
And sleep, yes.
Sleep really helps.
Yes.
That's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about yoga.
Okay.
Because you have a new class coming up.
Yes. So Yoga for Peaceful Eating, part of the class is yoga, as I mentioned, to help with digestion. It's about 40 minutes. The class is 90 minutes, and about roughly half of it is doing yoga. The other half is discussion and reflection and just simple, small exercises to help really shift some of maybe some core assumptions that we have or ways of doing things. We do an intuitive eating exercise. So,
how do you describe intuitive eating?
And actually, I misspoke. We do a mindful eating exercise, and I do discuss intuitive eating. So those are a little bit different. A mindful eating exercise is where I'll bring in different foods and let people choose what they want, and then we just eat it in a very slow and mindful way. It's exaggerated. It's not a way that you would eat, your meals every day going forward, but it's such a drastic shift from how many people eat that you really get to create a sensual experience of taking in your food with all of your senses instead of just throwing it down the hatch and carrying on with your day.
Because there's smell, there's visualization, there's taste.
Yeah, Yeah, and there's something called the cephalic phase digestive response, and that basically means that
English?
cephalic meaning brain, and digestive response. So our body is preparing for digestion before the food even hits our mouth. So the sights, the smells.
It's when you salivate when you see a pickle jar or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or when you're making those meals, for your friends or for your family, you're preparing yourself, and we miss out on that when we just are eating really quickly or grabbing food on the go. So it's important to calm and slow down as much as we can, and I think that's really important.
What are some of the poses that you would suggest regarding helpful digestion?
So, we do like a specific kind of it's not a pose, but a way of rubbing the belly that is in alignment with, the way the colon is in the body. We do some gentle twists. Twists are great for stimulating the core when you're in, for example, a seated twist and your abdomen is slightly compressed. That creates a gentle squeeze of the organs, and then when you release it, new fresh blood and oxygen goes into the organs.
Interesting. Very cool.
Yeah. We don't do inversions because those aren't necessarily great for,
Inversions being upside down?
Being upside down, yeah.
So what do you think of that thing that goes upside down and has your ankles and it's like a cot? My grandma had one where you hung by your feet and then you flipped up, and you hung by your feet and flipped up.
I don't know. It's a cot?
It's an inversion cot or something. It's supposed to elongate your spinal cord and your ankles and stuff, but
neat.
A lot of exercises are BS. I don't know. Okay, so you're not down with that.
Yeah, and then it's a slow, gentle sequence that really just helps to, again, create an overall sense of calm and ease in the body, in the mind, in the nervous system.
Okay, how does food and yoga relate? I know I've been in a few yoga classes, and some people have some really bad farts. What's the best thing to do before and after your yoga class regarding food?
There are some recommendations I've heard of not eating for a few hours before a class. I think that's pretty individual as well. Some people, would feel uncomfortable. Others would be completely fine.
The guy in front of me on the mat, he was completely fine letting the gas out.
And there is certain poses. One that's called wind relieving pose, because it really does release, air.
I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. So, but it's a healthy thing. I understand where it's not necessarily preferred or enjoyable, but like releasing gases is part of a healthy digestive system, and it's important.
So it's not saying you have a problem when gases are released like that?
Oh, no. Everyone releases gas every day.
Interesting. What tips do you have for other yogis when it goes to teaching a class and trying to inspire people further from just yoga to yoga and eating and lifestyle and such? Or is that something they shouldn't tip their toes into?
Are you saying how would I try to inspire other yoga students to change their food?
Yoga instructors.
Okay.
How would you inspire them to include diet and nutrition into their yoga programs? Oh,
I think that it's only something they should do if they want to, or if they feel called, if they have a background in it. I serve as the Mind-Body Therapies Chair for dietitians in integrative and functional medicine, and we're actually creating a cohort of all the dietitian yogis, RD yogis out there. But even within yoga, the sister science to yoga is called Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is the ancient medical system of India, and that is a beautiful system and probably a whole nother conversation. And
you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. But a lot of yogis might come to nutrition through through Ayurveda as well. That's another approach. And
what does that approach look like?
So in the Ayurvedic approach, every person, there's 3 different doshas: kapha, pitta, and vata, and they're different kinds of elements, and we all have a different constitution that's based on different levels of these 3 things. And based on your constitution, there are certain foods and practices that would be more recommended or less recommended to bring you into balance. So it's very individualized, and it's.
How does breathing relate to yoga?
Breathing is one of the fastest ways to help the body move from a stressful state to a more relaxed state. And that slow, conscious breathing that's a part of yoga classes really helps to elicit the parasympathetic, or the rest and digest state. So inhale is more activating, and a long exhale is more relaxing. So if you want to relax, or even just before you eat a meal, take a couple of deep, long breaths and really accentuate that exhale. That's a really great way to help your body be in a more relaxed state to receive the food.
Yeah, I do that when I drive.
Yeah.
I take 10 deep breaths and say, okay, I'm getting in the car. It's like my least favorite thing to do is drive.
That's a great practice. Yeah.
I get stressed out, and if I remember the breathing technique, it really helps. It really does. How do you feel about eating for your type? Like you're a woman, I'm a man, I'm tall, I'm small, I have this blood type, you have that blood type. Is there any correlation in nutritional value eating for your type?
For sure. I mean, if you are a woman, at menopause, your nutrient needs will shift and change, and it's more important to be aware of things like calcium and protein.
And iron, right?
And iron. And so, yes, I do think that, who you are as an individual, all parts that make you are things to factor in, both physiologically and like scientifically with like how much of certain nutrients do you need. Yes.
Okay. Close to my final question here.
Okay.
Hey, it's Tim. Pamela. How should I eat? I come into your establishment. I don't know how I'm feeling. I don't really log into what I'm eating. I'm sedentary. I have health issues. How do you greet me, and what's your intake process?
I have a form that you can fill out that asks different questions. Some of them are straightforward and factual. Some of them are more, like I said, just trying to get into understanding your mind and your thought process around food and eating. And one of the first things I like to do is just tell me what's typical for you. What does a day look like? And we can start from there. Sometimes it can be hard for people to realistically sort of assess and understand if they're eating too much or not enough. I know a lot of folks feel like they're overdoing it when likely from a nutritional standpoint, they might be underdoing it, and that could be causing them to have cravings or eat late at night or have trouble, losing weight or maintaining weight or, whatever they're working on. So I would start and say, like, what's happening? Let's look at what's typical for you, and let's look at where what do you want to change? What are your goals? And then it's different for every single person.
Okay. Supplements. Do you take any? Do you recommend any? Do you have a list of what you can't absolutely live without? Or do you poo-poo it because supplements are hard to source? You should get your nutrients from food. What's your viewpoint on supplements?
I think that supplements can be very helpful. I do have a general food first approach, but yes, I do take supplements, and I think that there are some that maybe most people would likely benefit from. For example, fish oil. In all the people I've worked with, there was one person who had sufficient levels of fatty acids without supplementation, and this person had a personal chef, and she was a pescatarian, so she had a lot of fish in her diet. For most of us, we might be lacking in that. So again, I'm not making general recommendations to the public, but just sort of speaking in general terms. Another one, based on where we live, latitudinally, we don't get a ton of direct sunlight for a large part of the year. So vitamin D is going to be important. So yeah, I think supplements definitely have their place. And I don't push supplements on people, but if I think that they'll be helpful, I'll definitely recommend them.
Yeah, I definitely take D for about 6 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. Love that. Fish oil daily.
Nice.
What other good things do I take? Oh, let's not get into that. It's too personal. Well, I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming back again. Blossom was a great event. I met a lot of great people. You've reached out to a lot of great individuals in the health world and brought them together, and I think that's a great event. It was an awesome podcast. Like I told you before we got on air, meeting Paula was awesome, and having her on, and that was a great podcast about the death of her child and how she copes, and her ability to carry on.
Yeah, she's has a powerful story and is a really good soul. So
I'm glad you're connected with Joanna, the death doula too. Mm-hmm. She's an incredible woman. It's just really nice to find people like yourself in this island that are, higher thinkers in my mind, and health conscious and supportive of others and empathetic to people's problems. And all three of you have displayed that to me, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully all of PODCASTVILLE does too.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the good work that you do. I love your show and what you're doing for our community. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you. And tell everybody once again your website.
PamelaMalo.com. PAMELAMALO.
And your establishment's where? It's virtual
practice. Yes. The class at Diallo, I didn't mention this, starts October 18th. It's Wednesday evenings.
How do people sign up for that?
Right on the Diallo website.
Or Diallo?
Yes. And reach out with questions. I'm happy to answer them. And for folks who sign up before October 1st, I'm doing an early bird special of a free 30-minute call where I can connect with you, and any challenge that you want to talk through or work through, we can do that.
I feel privileged. I got like a double call right here, hanging out with you for an hour.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thank
you,
Tim.
I hope you come back, and I hope you continue your ways, because you're an important part of our community.
Well, thank you. So nice to be here.
All right. You've been listening to Bystander. Be kind.